Hello and welcome back. So this is the final lecture of this complete NgRx state management course. And in this lecture, we are going to see some of the configurations which we can do for an entity in NgRx Data. So let's go to VS Code. And here, let me close this app module.ts file, and let's also close this entity metadata.ts file. And inside this courses module.ts file, we are defining our entity metadata map, and there we have defined two entities, course and lesson. Now here, since we are not using this lesson entity, I can go ahead and I can also remove it. But if in your application you have multiple entities for a given module, then you can keep all those entities in the same entity metadata map. Okay. Now, whenever you have an entity to that, you are assigning an object-like syntax. So if you see for this course, I have assigned this curly braces, and for this lesson also, I have assigned this curly braces. This is nothing but an option object where you can specify some settings, some configurations for your entity. So if you see here, I'm doing one of the configurations for this course entity where I'm setting the options for entity dispatcher. Basically, how the dispatcher will handle the update and delete. We can also have other options here like optimistic add and optimistic upsert, etc. And in the same way, we also have other configurations. So let's start with the simplest one, which is the select ID. The select ID option is same, which we talked about in NgRx entities section. So by default, what NgRx data does is it uses the ID property of the entity as the unique identifier. But let's say for your entity, you do not have an ID property. You have something like underscore ID or maybe product ID or order ID, etc. In that case, NgRx data will not know which property is the unique identifier property. So in that case, you will have to specify the ID field explicitly. So let's say for this course entity, instead of having the ID field, so here I have the models. Here I have the course model.ts. So here instead of having the ID, let's say I have the property name as underscore ID. In that case, entity data will not be able to find any ID property for this course interface. So it will not be able to use any property as a unique identifier. In that case, we will have to explicitly specify that. So here using the select ID property, I can specify what is my unique identifier property in my entity. And here I cannot set it like this. So what I need to do is here I can create a function maybe. So you can create this function in maybe some utility file or something like that. But here for the demonstration purpose, I'm going to create it here. I don't need to export it from here, but if I want to use this function anywhere else in any other file, then I will have to export it. So I'll just keep this export keyword also. And here I'm going to create a function select course ID. Okay, here we are going to pass a course object of type course, and this should return course.id. Okay, it should be course, and here it has to return course.id. And to use this course interface, we also need to import it. Okay, so here it does not have ID field, it has underscore ID field. And now here I can call this select course ID like this. Okay. All right, so this is how you can set the select ID. Then we can also sort our data. So here we have another setting called sortComparer. So using this, you can specify how you want to sort the data, sort the entity. So again, here I'm going to create and export a function, or I don't need to export the function actually. Here I'll call it as sort by title. Okay. And this method, it is going to take two parameters. I'll simply call it as A and B. So A of type course and B of type course. And what it is going to return? It is going to return a dot title dot local compare. And with what it has to compare this a dot title, it has to compare it with b dot title. So this is going to sort the data in ascending order. Okay, it should be b dot data. I mean b dot title. So this here it is going to sort the data in ascending order. Let's save the changes, and if I go to our application, you will see that now the data is sorted in ascending order. Okay, here we have this error because we have changed the ID property. So here I'm going to change it to ID instead of underscore ID. And from here, I'm going to return course.id. Okay, so when we have ID property, in that case, we do not need to specify this select ID. So that is not mandatory, but still we can keep it. We use the select ID property when the unique identifier for our entity is different from name ID. If it is underscore ID, or if it is course ID, or if it is some other field name other than ID, in that case, we will have to use this select ID configuration, this setting, to specify which property do we want to use as the unique identifier. So with this, let's save the changes. Let's go back. And I just want to show you that the data is sorted in ascending order. So let me log in this user. Let's go to courses page. So you see it has loaded all the courses, and the courses are sorted in ascending order. If I go back and if I change the logic of this sort by title, so here if I say b.title.localCompare, then let's pass a.title. In this case, it is going to sort the courses data in descending order. So now the data is sorted in descending order. So this is another configuration, this sortComparer, which you can add here. Then we also have other configurations. So for example, if you want to use a different entity name than what you have specified here, so instead of course, if you want to call this entity, let's say maybe tutorials, then you can specify that as well. If I save the changes and if I go to the application, looks like we have some error. So you see we have an error and it says no entity definition for entity type course, because everywhere we are specifying the name of the entity as course. If I scroll down somewhere, here also we have specified the entity name as course. But now since we have specified this option, this entity name option, and there we are specifying the entity name as tutorial. Now, wherever we want to use this entity, there we have to use this name tutorial. Okay, then only it will work. So this is another configuration which you can set, but I'm not going to set it. I'll simply comment it. So these are some of the configurations which we can do for our entity while defining the entity metadata. So here we talked about 4 configurations: the select ID, sortComparer, entity name, and entity dispatcher options. So this is all from this lecture and from this section and also from this course. This is the last lecture of this course. And with this, we have completed everything related to NgRx state management. So we have covered NgRx store, we have covered NgRx entity, we covered NgRx router state, we also covered some NgRx developer tools, and finally we have also covered NgRx data. Now we also have few new things in NgRx, like if I go to the documentation, we also have something like NgRx signals and NgRx component store, but these things I have not covered in this course. NgRx signals is fairly new, and we can use NgRx signals with the signal concept which has been introduced in the latest versions of Angular. So to cover this NgRx signals, I'll have to create a completely new course. So it is not possible to cover this NgRx signals in this course. But once I have covered Angular 17 and higher versions, on my YouTube channel. So once I will create a complete playlist for Angular 17 and higher versions. After that, I will also create another course for state management using NgRx signals. But in this course, I'm not going to cover NgRx signals. And I'm also not going to cover NgRx component store. So this is all from this lecture and from this course. If you have any questions from any lecture of this course, then feel free to ask it. And I'll also appreciate if you can give some feedback for this course so that it will help me to improve and I can create better courses in future. Thank you. And if you have not subscribed to this channel yet, then please subscribe to this channel and support me. And please share this channel with your friends and colleagues who are interested in learning backend and front-end development in depth. Thank you and have a nice day.